Welcome to the hotline for today, Thursday, the 31st July 2025. Good to have you with us, listeners. We know that you have choices. We're happy when you come here, happier when you find reasons to stay. This is the hotline.
Emily's views, her position on the issues, her point of view backed up by the facts. Here are Emily's views.
There is a discussion that has been going on in parts here on Radio Jamaica. And I see the Gleaner on A3 of today's paper putting out a story on political ads, in quotations, trigger concerns. The story quotes a Dr. Christopher Charles, who was on the program yesterday. He's a professor of political and social psychology at the University of the West Indies. They say he has added his voice to concerns over the use of public resources to campaign for the upcoming general election. I've listened to parts of the discussion yesterday and I think sometime last week. For those who missed it, one of the advertisements, it appears portions of one of the presentations made by the Prime Minister at one of the openings he had for some event. A portion of his presentation was taken out and packaged and now placed on radio stations, talking of some of the things that the Prime Minister has done during his time. There is the sound of the bell, of a bell ringing in the background, because it was taken from one of those presentations where obviously labor rights were in attendance. When I listened to the ad, I must say that it was not the wisest decision, I beg your pardon, for whoever it is who removed that portion of the Prime Minister's presentation. Wasn't the wisest decision for them to have placed it in an advertisement for radio during the election period. A couple other things come to mind though, because the questions are now being raised as to whether it is public funds that are being used to pay for those advertisements. And if so, has the statutory mandate of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica under the campaign financing law, has that mandate been activated such that the ECJ is to do something? I do not know that the statutory mandate of the ECJ has been activated because of just how that particular ad has come. But the bigger thing that came to my head is this. In this particular dispensation, mainstream media, which used to get an awful lot in terms of revenue spend during a campaign period. Mainstream media, we've now been substantially financially dwarfed by the spend because the spend has been cut. It has been cut because there is no free social media space. And the political party who spends a lot on mainstream media, one doesn't even know if it is really a good bank for their buck because of what all of the different surveys are showing now about how people sort of consume information. And I'm thinking that there are some times when some academic discussions, though important, may appear to be so artificial in the face of existing realities that I'm certainly forcing myself to wonder, isn't it really to the financial benefit of media houses now that some ads are even placed with us because of the free space that is being provided to political parties, candidates through social media? So the discussion is important, but there are so many other elements to it that I'm not so sure yet that all those other elements have been captured. Let me take a break and come back.
At the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, we're driven by service excellence. Visit mof.gov.jm for more information. The time by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service is
9:15.
Emily's views, her position on the issues, her point of view backed up by the facts. Here are Emily's views.
Yes, so in other words, the spend need not come, and it is not coming to mainstream media as before. I recall in years gone by, when we were in a campaign period, you barely get discussion time because the radio stations were flooded with adverts from both political parties. And when we had functional third parties and their adverts, they are present as well. We don't have that anymore. So there is hardly the need for any great spend or spend that can allegedly be said to be political funds disguised and being used to promote the policies of the governing party, and campaigning being masked as delivery of government service. They can literally do it on social media. Yeah? And I've heard the representative of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, and I've also heard some criticisms of the positions that she's taken. But the Electoral Commission of Jamaica cannot act outside of its mandate under the campaign financing law. And if it does act outside of it, then it can be subject to a challenge. Yeah, so this thing where the office is being said to be letting down the people of Jamaica, and there's nobody to bat for the people of Jamaica. I don't know how those conclusions come to be drawn. Because if the law as is doesn't allow for the sort of scrutiny that some people wish for it to have now, then the person who is exercising the function under the law can't make herself do it. The law has to change to give her that power if a change is desirable. And as I talk about a challenge, yesterday on the front page of the Gleaner, and today the said pages on the left side of the newspaper, there's a story headlined yesterday, Holness fights to strike, quote, scandalous information from IC's officials' affidavit. And on today's front page, JLP dismisses threat of PM's IC court battle to third term push. I don't even know what this story is saying. JLP dismisses threat of PM's IC court battle to third term push. JLP dismisses threat of PM's IC court battle. How can a matter that is scheduled to be heard on the 13th of October for 10 days, and we do expect, I've certainly in my own calculation told you on this program, that based on the law as I read it and calculate the dates, based on the period in which we are now definitely foisted, and the emancipation celebrations leading into independence coming tomorrow the 1st of August into the 6th, it is my view that the 10th of August an election date will be announced. It is my view, and it is only based on, as I said, common sense, culture, and the law. And the announcement of the election on the 10th of August, I believe, will be followed by nomination on the 18th of August. I believe Monday the 18th. Let me just take out back my thingy here. And I believe the election will be for the 3rd of September, Wednesday the 3rd. And if this holds, then when the election results come in on election night, whatever they are, we'd be a good month away from the Prime Minister's court case, which he's brought against the Integrity Commission. So I don't quite understand how and why a court action that we have known about now for a number of months, how it can be any sort of threat to a possible third term for the Prime Minister. I don't understand it. Anyway, yesterday's paper now, when I read this, I looked at a number of the comments on social media, which is why I'm going to touch briefly on this matter. The Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, it says, is expected to learn on Thursday, which is today, whether the Supreme Court will grant his request to strike out, quote, scandalous sections of an official's affidavit in his lawsuit against the Integrity Commission. Justice Althea Jarrett will rule on an application filed by Holness and 3 affiliated entities seeking to strike out parts of a 108-page affidavit submitted in March by Craig Beresford, the Integrity Commission's Director of Information and Complaints. The application filed on June 11 targets at least 12 paragraphs in Beresford's affidavit that Holness claims are hearsay, scandalous, and irrelevant. In an affidavit of his own, Holness argued that paragraphs 11 to 15 and accompanying exhibits are an abuse of process, scandalous, frivolous, and vexatious, with prejudicial value outweighing any probative worth. And the article continues. Let me just pause here, because absent from this article was a little bit of background. And I say this because when I saw the report online and the comments under the report, I thought, wow, because people were saying this man looked like him have sitting for hide and whatever, which I'm not going to comment on whether people's speculations or speculative comments they are correct or not, because I don't know. Every single process in the Supreme Court is governed by laws, it's governed by rules. There is a simple test as to whether something, a claim, a statement, a document is admissible in a matter. And they always say the test of admissibility is relevance. So, not everything that happens related to a particular thing is admissible in court, depending on the claim that is before the court. And on top of that, whether there is a trial on witness statements or on affidavit, the court has a power to order that any information, anything, any document that is scandalous or oppressive in any manner, the court has the discretion to strike out those portions of whatever is in front of it. Anything that is hearsay, in other words, if the person who has sworn the affidavit is not speaking from his or her own knowledge, but is speaking to what a third party has said to him or her, then on an appropriate application by some individual or even by the court of its own motion, the court can strike out those portions of the affidavit or of the witness statement. And I think it's very important that, especially the period in which we are, that we understand a little bit about why some things may be happening. Yeah? So, the application to strike out is an application I make a lot of times. Because sometimes people may decide they're going to put some things in it that are so scandalous and irrelevant, and I can't even think of another word. They're literally trying to shame the individual. And the thing that they're saying is also not relevant to what is before the court. Then you can successfully make the application. And when you make the application, you go to the court and you make the submissions to the court on the basis of the case law that is guiding you as to why this particular portion is to be struck out by the court. Yeah, so this article, when I read it, I didn't see the background as to how and why a sort of application like this is allowed to be made in the court. And likewise, the Integrity Commission, if it believes that there are portions of Andrew Holness's application that are scandalous, that are hearsay, oppressive or whatever, then they too can make the application to strike out portions of the affidavit of the Prime Minister. And there is also case law that says if you're going to make an application of that nature, you need to make it at a stage before the actual trial. Usually they say at what you call a pre-trial review. I get the impression, however, that this particular hearing for this afternoon, it has come as a result of the application made to strike out the portions of the affidavit. And that is perfectly fine. But interestingly, the Gleaner says Holness's legal team has also filed motions for additional disclosures from the Integrity Commission, alleging that some previously provided documents incomplete or were otherwise altered or redacted without any lawful justification. The contested materials include a forensic accountant's report, the examiner's contract, and a non-disclosure agreement. So, am I to understand that there really is an agreement, a non-disclosure agreement that was made with, well, I don't even know with whom, whether it's with the forensic accountant or what. But I thought I heard that there was disclosure of this forensic accountant's report. But it seems from this report, if it does stand, that it wasn't disclosed, or copies of it, full copies of it, what they call inspection, these were not given. I'm understanding through this as well that the Integrity Commission redacted or sort of covered over, blacked out some pages or some sections of the report. And according to this report, the Integrity Commission says it has blacked out those portions as those portions involve third parties and the disclosure could be in breach of confidentiality provisions in the Integrity Commission Act. This is fascinating, but when I saw this, I thought, isn't this part something for the judge to decide, as opposed to the Integrity Commission within the disclosure framework deciding to redact the portion of the document before handing it over? We look forward to continuing to follow this matter, and the Gleaner is following it closely and giving us interesting accounts of it. So let's see what happens later on in the Supreme Court.
Join us next time for Emily's Views on the Hotline.
Clear your barrel